Hey folks, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Saurabh Pol. Welcome to Polkabol. Today I'm going to talk about why India cannot make its own DeepSeek or OpenAI for that matter, and how it is all related to one word, Jugaad. So I personally feel that Jugaad in India is a curse. Ever since we have, ever since I was a kid, right? I was told that there's something very unique about Indians. We just make do, you know. Ki whatever situation it is, kuch bhi ho jaye, we'll manage it, you know, and we'll come up with innovative solutions, right? Which are cheap, effective, and mostly efficient, and they act as a patchwork in the entire process to ensure you go from point A to point B. And it's considered a very uniquely Indian trait because we God has only blessed us with that amount of brain power, as per most of our people, that only Indians can do this. So we are special, of course, because that's the moral of every story in this country. Now, Jugaad is something which I acknowledge has helped us so far. But I think, you know, what they say, like when you go from one level to another in life or in a video game or even anywhere in corporate or wherever in life, right? What has worked for you till now will not work where you are right now, and will definitely not work where you want to go, right? So we have to evolve. uh, Indians are good at adapting. I don't think we have been so good at evolving, right? What, even 6% of this, only 6% of the country's population is in the organized sector, right? So we are not a country that operates on scale. Um, Whereas because of our population and because of our huge challenges, we need to operate on scale. And Jugaad is something which is the opposite of scale. It's a very short term solution for long term problems, is what I personally feel. It's in Mumbai, we call it thuk patti. You know, like ऐसा कुछ लगा के ऐसा चिपका देने का and sort हो जाएगा. This is if we see something is leaking, you know, it's imagine you're in a factory or a pipe is leaking, right? We are like, भाई अभी के लिए लेट्स व्हाट यू नो कुछ लेट्स गेट समथिंग, कुछ कपड़ा वपड़ा ले लो और जल्दी से बांध लो पाइप पे. एंड भले ही उसमें 30% ऑफ द वाटर इज बीइंग और वॉट एवर लिक्विड इज बीइंग transported is seeping out, you know, there's leakage. It's okay as long as like 70% at least is reaching, right? It's better than 0%. So because in India there are so many leaky pipes. Firstly, there are too many pipes and there are too many leakages in every pipe. We cannot stop to think of a solution, right? I acknowledge that it's not easy to come up with solutions in a country as complicated as us, right? With the socialist hangover and that deference that we have towards seniors in general in life, right? Like if someone's elder to you and someone has more experience than you, that's the end of it. We are just like, हाँ उन्होंने जो बोला वही सही है. And this is not just about, you know, in government organizations, even in private and even in personal lives. You will see that, you know, someone who is senior to you will more often than not carry more heft than you will, right? Like and if you have the age on your side, you will carry more heft irrespective of your expertise or compatibility, with the and capability for that matter with the situation that is there. Jugaad is something which we do. Jugaad is India's answer. I would say it's not an answer, it's a coping mechanism. Jugaad in India is a coping mechanism. What we do is like, boss, we know we cannot solve this problem at scale. We cannot solve it at the long term. We just keep on like coming up with a million jugaads and just keep on doing it again and again whenever and wherever it is required. That is our coping mechanism, and the Sone Pe Suhaga is that we celebrate it. You know, like wow, kya kiya hai? Matlab, you know, that is so cool. You know, like पेन की जगह पेंसिल यूज कर लिया हमने, देखो हमने पैसे बचा लिए, ये कर लिया वो कर लिया. We do not think of something, you know, like what happens if we do this? Will we really evolve the system or the process? Because so many things around us are unevolvable, unsolvable, frankly speaking. We know it is better to just give up and not even try to change them, right? And we don't have a process based attitude. We have a personality based attitude, right? अगर ये आदमी है तो ही ये काम होगा, अगर ये आदमी नहीं है तो ये काम नहीं होगा. We cannot implement processes because personalities override processes and rules and laws in this country. It's like, show me the person and I'll show you the law. So it is like that. Now you'll be like, what the hell does this have to do with DeepSeek? And I'll tell you what it has to do with DeepSeek, right? Innovation happens after deep research. मंथन करके होता है वो काफी, innovation happens slowly. Okay, it happens painstakingly. It takes years, if not decades, to bear fruit, right? More importantly, innovation is born out of failure. Innovation is something which requires a lot of dead ends, a lot of mistakes to happen from different people, so that at least one person comes up and says, Ki, you know what, we tried 99 other ways, there is one more way I can try. And then the 100th time you do it, then it's like, oh wow, this is something which we have come up before. So even the ones who have failed help the person who succeeded, because he or she knows, let's not go in that direction, we know what happens. And research is not highly paid in India, because the amount of, you look at any company we have, right? Most of our private companies, the R&D budgets are negligible, right? Like, we are like, bhai, हमने profit कमा लिया, बड़ी बात है. What do you mean by invest in R&D? ये हमारा काम है नहीं. In a lot of ways, India has kind of given up when it comes to research and development. I'm not saying we are not innovative, right? Like, I think we are pretty innovative. I think our fintech space is amazing. I think our logistics space is also pretty good. Our e-commerce, our quick commerce space is brilliant. Of course, we have those unique conditions that make it possible. But you know what? If we are going to celebrate the unique conditions of cheap labor and population density, help us make certain business models viable, we should also acknowledge that there are certain conditions which make very normal other business models unviable. Like, our per capita income is not that high. Our services reach is not that deep, right? So credit where due. We are innovating in certain parts of this country, but in a lot of ways, I think we still have that culture where we are like, bhai, just effectiveness over efficiency. Just ये हो रहा है ना, बस हो गया. You know, research is not that, right? Research requires you to do something completely new with no guarantee that it will succeed. India, when anyone is born, the one thing we ask out of them is please succeed, because we are such a poor nation. Okay, even today we are a very poor nation. All this fourth largest economy and all doesn't work when you are the most populous country in the world. It doesn't work. If we had half the population, then it would have worked. It doesn't work that way, right? Like, we have to ensure progress for everyone, and progress can't. Then R&D then becomes something which only the government can definitely not focus on, because the in the list of priorities, LLM models come very, very low, when there is food insecurity in this country. मतलब food insecurity is just English, by the way. It just means खाने का पैसा, खाना नहीं है लोगों के पास. कुछ लोग भूखे मरते हैं अपने देश में. Correct? It's that sad. It's a reality. The government gives 80 crore people, 800 million people, according to the government itself, right, gets free food. A country that does that, you're expecting that country to compete with OpenAI and DeepSeek. Are we being serious right now? I know DeepSeek is a product and OpenAI is a company, but you know what I mean. Like, let's not let's be serious, right? Even Nandan Nilekani, who I feel is India's tech czar, and all this Aadhaar, UPI, and all these other innovations that you see in India's technology space, that tech stack, the Indian tech stack that has been built, has been in large parts done by the ex, Infosys leader, Nandan Nilekani, right? Like, I think he was one of the co-founders of Infosys. And Mr. Nilekani, we owe him a lot, right? We owe him a lot. His name will be written in textbooks in glowing terms. I'm very sure of it. And what he said recently, like, let's not focus on building models. India should not focus on building models. Like, the man who probably is the architect of India's technology stack, who makes everything around us possible in a lot of ways. He's saying his philosophy is, let's not, focus on models. Like, India shouldn't, right? This is not the place to do it. We should work on, like, servicing and all. We should stick to services. working with AI models, working with AI agents and all. So this is why we can't come up with a DeepSeek or an OpenAI. Let's be very frank. Let's be very frank. And somewhere I feel, what, it's fine. It's understandable. The AI race, if it would have come 10 years later, it would have worked out. Now, this is not a video about just complaining about things, right? Like, I'll be very frank. We started out in IT services in the 70s, right? 1970s. That was like 50 years ago. And we have been growing, so on and so on and so on. There was Putney Computers. There was even TCS for that matter later on. Wipro and all got into the action. Infosys came about. And they built it for 20 years, 20, 30 years. They really worked hard and they built that an entire industry. And when Y2K happened, it really, reached the stratosphere. And ever since the early 2000s, I think Indian IT has gone on to become the largest employer in India, right? In the organized sector. Now, when you see that, you will be like, oh, ye to, this is garbage work, this is not innovation and all. One could say that, fair enough, you're doing all the kachra kaam which the others do not want to do. Fair enough, you can say that. Although it's not entirely true. But because of that base of services, we were able to get these SaaS companies that India has, you know, really produced in the last decade or so. There are some very big companies like, Freshworks, Postman, BrowserStack, I would say, that have come about in the last, 15 years, 10, 15 years or so. Wingify and all of those SaaS companies, CleverTap. And these are companies, ChargeBee. These are companies that are, you know, leaders in their space world over. Okay. How is that not innovation? These are world class products, used products, mind you. Of course, they're B2B products, they're SaaS products, and they're back end products more often than not. But at least it's a product, right? We have gone on from IT services to product. So it, because of the base of IT services, software engineering became very common in India. Like, we produce more engineers than anywhere in the world. I think probably even more than China, if I'm not wrong, right? The quality is debatable, but we do. We produce more engineers every year, that can be absorbed anywhere, especially in our own country, right? Which also keeps the wages down, frankly, but it is what it is, right? And because of that, you now have like a creme de la creme who actually built those products. Zoho. Wow, I forgot. Sorry. They need to improve their PR. But yeah, in general, like, so these SaaS companies, now we will gradually in the next 10 years or so, I genuinely believe we will come up with B2C, software solutions too. We will come up with software products that are B2C in nature. I genuinely believe that, because to become an entrepreneur, see, not everyone's a Dhirubhai Ambani, okay? You need that in a lot of ways. It's always helpful if you have a certain amount of cushion that you can fail, you're allowed to fail, okay? Like, if you are allowed to fail, if you have family wealth, or if you have your own wealth for that matter, like आपने 5-10 साल काम किया, बहुत कमा लिया है, like अभी मैं धंधा करूंगा. Unless you have that security, that blanket, that parachute, that safety net, unless you have that, how can you possibly think of starting up something of your own? And even if you do, how can you even think of starting up of something on your own where there is no precedent for it, right? Like, you can make fun of Mr. Narayan Murthy as much as you want, but he started off something, which not many people had thought of, and he scaled it to an incredible level. He was part of Putney Computers, and he realized that there is a different way to do these things, right? Like, today, Infosys is one of the biggest companies in India. Um, my point is that innovation can only happen, you know, at scale, if there is prosperity. China is contributing now to worldwide innovation because they have been prosperous for the last 10 years, I would say. 10, 15 years, they've been doing very well economically. They are one of the richest countries in the world at this point. Of course, the per capita is not that high, but if you consider purchasing power parity, their per capita is incredible. So my point is that we will also come up with our own DeepSeek, whatever it will be, in 2045, is what I'm saying, right? Because or 10, 15, 20 saal lagega for India to be rich enough, secure enough. Like, imagine someone who's born in, like 2020 or something. By the time it's 2045, they'll be 25 years old, and they'll have at least two generations where they are like, ha, we haven't seen poverty. In some cases, even more than that, right? Like, we have never seen poverty. Like, it's been 3, 4 generations, and there's enough. And this person will be like, you know what? I can experiment. I can go and do something which no one has thought of. And by that time, India will have the infrastructure to support it. you know we will be able to do these things. So I don't think we should be too harsh on ourselves when it comes to not coming up with these research, very heavy, genuinely innovative, technologies. We won't be able to do it. We won't. There is no ecosystem for it, because see, you can only develop things when there is a promise of monetary value. So if your ultimate market is going to be US or China, why the hell will you build it in India? तो आप वहीं पे करोगे ना। आपका इकोसिस्टम होता है, एक पार्टनरशिप इकोसिस्टम होता है, एक टैलेंट पूल इकोसिस्टम होता है, एक वेंचर कैपिटल इन्वेस्टर इकोसिस्टम होता है। Unless those things are built, unless the environment becomes mature enough, and maturity takes time. Maturity isn't downloaded overnight. It's not a torrent, right? So I'm just saying that we need to be cognizant that yes, okay, the US and the Americans and the Chinese have done brilliantly when it comes to AI, but we are not in any position to do this. And one of the reasons we are not in any positions to do this is not just because we are not a wealthy country, it is also because we are a country that somewhere believes more in effectiveness over processes. Just get shit done attitude is good in bursts and spurts. But I absolutely hate it when we celebrate जुगाड़. ओके, आपको जुगाड़ मेंटालिटी से बाहर आना पड़ेगा। आपको एक प्रोसेस मेंटालिटी अडॉप्ट करनी पड़ेगी। एक सिस्टमैटिक अप्रोच आपको लेना पड़ेगा इन एवरी वॉक ऑफ लाइफ. Only then can we evolve and genuinely, because that's a philosophical thing also, I personally feel. Because jugaad is done like this. A process takes time and it's iterative. You can never, if you have honestly set up a process anywhere in your life, you will realize that when you creating it only takes time, and once you create it and implement it, the first thing that happens is it fails. Because no process survives human contact. So you have to keep iterating, keep improving, right? And that is when you will innovate and come up with something entirely new and solve something at scale. So I know there are kind of two topics that are merging in this, but I genuinely feel this is polkeball, right? Jugaad is the enemy of innovation. Keep that in mind. If you're young, this is my honest feedback to you. Or it doesn't matter even if you're young, right? Even if you are my age or you're elder to me. Jugaad should be a stopgap measure. It should be an exception to the rule. It cannot and should not be the rule. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, that's genuinely what I feel about, India, China, DeepSeek, the Americans, OpenAI, Jugaad, innovation, R&D. Because let's be frank, we can't be that harsh on ourselves, but we should also be cognizant of our failures. And this is a long-term process. It's gonna take at least a decade or two before we genuinely start producing innovative things, right? And innovation doesn't always mean सस्ते में किया, उन लोगों ने 1 लाख में किया, हमने 10,000 में किया. The reason we always do that is because in India, our purchasing power is very low. It's been increasing for the last couple of decades, but historically, it's been very low in the last century or so, right? So we are now getting out of it. That scarcity mindset leads to jugaad. I acknowledge that, but this is not something we should celebrate. I'm I I may be too harsh on this, but I'm requesting you in your daily walk of life, especially in corporate, don't go for jugaad, go for processes. So I'll be making a video any which ways on um, you know personality versus processes, because it's a huge pet peeve of mine. But this is what I generally feel about DeepSeek, OpenAI, and why India has not been able to produce anything close to what they have been able to produce. Let me know what you think. Maybe you must have been like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Or probably you're like, you know what, he's absolutely right. It could be anything. Let me know your thoughts. Maybe I must have missed out on something. Uh, you know, yeah, probably something like, hey, India does not, have the funding to do research, you know. But then again, it's also research R&D funding happens. R&D funding, I personally believe in a lot of ways, is like डेजर्ट राइट, लाइक खाना खाने के बाद ही होता है, हम लोग को खाना पहले खा रहे हैं फिर जाके डेजर्ट होगा. सो एनीवे, लेट मी नो. थैंक यू सो मच. लाइक, कमेंट, सब्सक्राइब. थैंक यू.